Several teams missed either 22 or 23 or both, and these questions have to do with the taxonomy of goods. So let's just run through that briefly. Sort of a fun way to think about the goods that we experience in life. So we're going to think about two dimensions. One is rivalrous or non-rivalrous. I'll define these terms in a moment. And the other one is excludable and non-excludable. I'm going to run out of room. Oh well, you get the idea. All right, so we've got this grid. And let's think about this space. These goods are rivalrous and excludable. So a good being rivalrous just means, hey, if I use the good, other people can't. So let's take a loaf of bread. I eat the loaf of bread, it's not available for anybody else to eat. Excludable means that if I have that loaf of bread and you want it, well, I can say, no, it's mine, I paid for it. And if you beat me up and take it, maybe you get the bread, but then I can go to the police and you go to jail. So this is what separates civilization from caveman. So anyway, when a good is both rivalrous and excludable, that's a private good, and we can expect markets to do pretty well, if there aren't any externalities and there's perfect competition. We can expect markets to allocate private goods and allocate resources to produce private goods pretty well. Loaf of bread, a car, most of the goods, a tube of toothpaste, most of the things we think about as market goods are private goods. So that's just the benchmark. Well, let's think about a couple other type of goods. Let's take number 22. What features characterize a public good? A public good is actually defined as a good that's both non-rivalrous, meaning if it exists, I can enjoy it without in any way diminishing your ability to enjoy it, etc. So if it's produced, everybody gets to enjoy it without diminishing it for everybody else. And then finally, non-excludable. That means if it exists, I can't keep you from enjoying it. So this is called a public good. And here markets generally don't do such a good job. Let's take national defense, right? If Bill Gates is probably one of the few individuals capable of actually defending his property on his own if he needed to. So if he defends, the Seattle shore of Lake Washington against nuclear attack, well, he's defending all of Seattle. And the fact that all of Seattle is benefiting from that defense doesn't in any way diminish his safety. So that's the non-rivalrous nature of non-excludability. On the other hand, he also can't exclude. He can't say to some neighbor, hey, you didn't pay for it. That means that you're going to have to face the nuclear missile attack because, you didn't pay. Well, no, if Bill Gates is going to defend himself, he's going to have to defend everybody in the area. So it's non-excludable either. So national defense, broadcast TV. If the signal's being broadcast, you can stick an antenna up and enjoy it without diminishing my ability to do so. Of course, broadcast TV. The markets have sort of solved that problem, right? Through selling ads, the TV companies fund themselves, and of course there's public broadcasting, and you'll notice quite a difference in the programming there as opposed to programming elsewhere. That's often touted as this great success of the market to get this public good provided, and usually there's a free rider problem, right? Listen to the public radio pleas for money, and 90% of listeners don't contribute. Right, you'd rather listen for free and have somebody else pay. That's a good deal for us. That's how we are about taxes. That's how we are about a lot of things. That free rider problem is a big deal. But broadcast TV, right? There's no free rider because we've got it paid for by advertising. But there's plenty of reason to be leery of that. I lived in Spain, worked in Spain after college. I was there during a coup attempt. The first thing it was called a golpe de estado in Spanish, but the first thing the coup attempt went for was the broadcast stations, because whoever controls the information channels has a great deal of political control. And when you're a broadcaster and you need ad money to air, you're beholden to who's ever paying for the ads. And it's another way that critics of American society point out that, hey, corporations have the power to fund elections and to determine what's broadcast to its citizenry, and that's not right. There's a problem. But anyway, that's an argument that hopefully you'll participate in your life, one side or the other. So broadcast TV is another example. And these are just definitional. We realize that public goods are non-excludable and non-rivalrous. D is the right answer for number 22. Now, there are some goods that are rivalrous, but non-excludable. These are goods like these are commons goods. Oops. And I have a screencast, 2 screencasts on the tragedy of the commons, which I highly recommend watching. They're in the learning materials section of Module 5 on our class Moodle page. But here, the fisheries are often, the fisheries of fish that move around. So salmon is a classic one, cod, Chilean sea bass is this broad term for a lot of species of fish. Originally, these resources were managed, hey, you get a boat, you go out, you get your fish, come back, you can just take whatever you want. Public forests are often managed that way. Well, the problem is that under such an arrangement, I can't keep anybody from sending a fishing boat out. There's no law to let me do that. But when one person catches a fish, that fish is no longer in the pond for any of the rest of us to catch. So these goods are non-excludable. But what we find is with commons goods that private actors have every incentive to think about their own good, their own welfare, but they don't have any incentive to think about whether the fish is there for everybody else. And what we've seen is fishery after fishery after fishery, from the whales in the 1800s to cod more recently. North Atlantic cod used to be the greatest fishery of the world. Now it's defunct. It's just dead. Salmon is of course now heavily regulated, but before that those runs were collapsing. Anyway, fisheries, public forests can sometimes be managed this way. That's why so much of the developing world is deforested. I didn't get that written out very well, sorry. And then finally, this last category, I'm not going to do much with this category in this course, but goods can be excludable but non-rivalrous. We call these collective goods. Or club goods. And you'll see why we call them club goods when I think of some examples. So here, we think of like a tennis court, right? A tennis court, if I build a private tennis court, I can keep people off, right? It's private property. But even as much as I love to play tennis, I'm 54, I can play for a couple hours a day, and then I just start getting too sore and things start breaking and falling off of me. Anyway, so, owning it by myself, it's sitting there empty for 22 hours of the day. And so 22 hours of the day, somebody could play, and it would in no way diminish my enjoyment of that tennis court. Same thing for a public swimming pool, as long as it's not too crowded. Anyway, these goods are excludable, but up to a certain level of usage, they're non-rivalrous. And so we often see people getting together and creating a tennis club. So 100 households together can share 5 courts that get optimal usage. 200 families can share a public swimming pool, or golf course is another example. Anyway, these collective goods are example. Cable TV is another one like that. Actually, think about it. Cable TV. If they want to cut you off a cable, they have to come out. Well, now they've got a digital scrambler, but back in the old days, when the signal was analog, to disconnect your cable, they actually had to send a serviceman out to your property and put a trap on the cable coming into your house to interrupt the signal. So, the marginal cost of offering one more cable line is zero. So having more people hooked up to the cable broadcast doesn't cost any money. It doesn't. One person's usage in no way diminishes other people's usage. So it's non-rivalrous, but it's definitely excludable. What features characterize a commons resource or a common resource? It's non-excludable but rivalrous. C. So these two are really important for what's going on in chapter 13. So definitely spend the time to master these concepts.